football is important. It's the most important thing.
And welcome back to the NFLandU podcast, everybody. It is Friday, December 11th. I had to look at my notes for that one. And we are here in Week 14 for a jam-packed edition of the podcast, previewing all the games of Week 14. I'm your host, as always, Hayden Vassar, joined by the always great Mark Hogan. Mark, how you doing today, my man?
Yeah, what's up, Hayden? Like you said there, we have an absolutely jam-packed week of games. I should have probably done my homework, seeing as I'm a podcast host now, and should have actually gone through how many of these are playoff versus playoff hopeful team. It's insane how stacked this slate is this week, and yeah, looking forward to getting into it.
Yeah, basically like the entire AFC playoff picture is playing each other with the exception of the Tennessee Titans. Like seeds 1 through 9, except the Titans are playing each other this week. It's going to be, it's the playoffs picture is going to look a lot different come Monday at the end of the games. That's all I'm trying to say. It's going to be a lot of fun.
It's going to be a lot of fun. I hope, though, that it's not like a couple of weeks ago when all the teams that desperately needed a win got the win and everyone else dropped out and it became even muddier than it was before. There should be some separation opened up. I know we're going to get into games like Baltimore and Cleveland, right, but one that we might get off the top, I think we're going to do it, is Sunday Night Football. I mean, we're getting Pittsburgh Buffalo, which is just an absolute mouth-watering clash. Before that, I should probably, or if you want to do it, bring in our guest picker for the week, Hayden.
Oh yeah, let's get that real quick. Our guest picker this week is at Mugs NFL, MUGS NFL on social media. He sells custom U.S. sports merch with any player name and number, things like T-shirts, cups, hoodies, you named it. It's handmade stuff that's made in the UK, and Mark has actually purchased this stuff before, and he can tell you about it. It's really quality handmade stuff. Once again, our guest picker is at Mugs NFL this week.
Yeah, I don't know how much of the UK audience has been listening to us now versus the American audience. I'm sure he'll shift anywhere in the world. But honestly, yeah, I got a cup there back in, I suppose, just coming into the beginning of the season. I was looking at the NFL official site, and there was one Cardinals mug for whatever is going to come to €15, whatever that works out to, $18 with delivery and all included. And then I see these guys' cups, they were going to be roughly the same price, if not €1 or €2 less. And yeah, he was going to customize it for me. So I even actually sent him what I wanted. It wasn't exactly how he had described it. I obviously got a Cardinals mug, believe it or not. And I had asked for something, hadn't described it very well. So he came out with a different cup altogether and said, "Oh, is there any chance you could change it?" And yeah, he did. And I got the exact cup that I wanted. So yeah, it's good. It's good quality stuff. So if anyone's in the Christmas spirit and stuff like that and is looking for any gifts, yeah, definitely hit him up because he'll literally put anything on a cup. It's crazy.
Yeah, quality handmade stuff made in the UK. Once again, it's at Mugs NFL as our guest picker this week, and we will be giving his guest picks for all of these games. And like Mark said, there is no better place to start than the absolutely massive Sunday Night Football matchup between the 11 and now 1 Pittsburgh Steelers going to Buffalo to take on the 9-3 Buffalo Bills, who are also coming off of a big game, their win on Monday night against the Niners. And Mark, if it's okay with you, I would like to start first with these Buffalo Bills, if that's all right. Because
yeah, go ahead, please.
Listen, I was getting out of the shower, I think it was Tuesday morning, and I heard this little snippet on the NFL Network. It was like one of those throwaways right before the commercial. They're like, where did the Buffalo Bills rank in the AFC power structure? Are they ready to be a for real team? And my initial knee-jerk reaction was, yeah, they're a for real team. But then I thought about it a little deeper. I'm like, what if the Buffalo Bills aren't just a for real team? What if they're really good enough to take over the number 2 seed in the AFC? I'm going to come on this show and make that argument right here, right now, that they can be a team that can do that. And Mark will get into the Pittsburgh side here in a second and talk about them. But this Buffalo Bill team, like it or not, Josh Allen is coming off another phenomenally great game. It feels like we're saying that almost every other week at this point, that he's raised his game to another level. He's evolved to the point where you don't necessarily have to stare at him and hope he doesn't throw the game away for the Bills. And the defense that's come out of the bye week, they've played a lot better. I know the numbers don't necessarily back it up, and that their stats based on the whole year really still don't look that good. But if you watch them play, they are playing a lot better. No, they're not the defense they were a year ago that they were guaranteed a top 3, but they're getting back to that point where the defense is going to start shutting things down. And that's what I want to really focus on. You may not like the Buffalo Bills. You may not like how they do things, But that's what a complete team looks like, people. They got a run game that's going now. Their quarterback is slinging it all over the yard, and the defense is coming along. That's everything you have to be successful in this league. And I put all of this out there to say, listen, the Bills are literally only, right now, they're 2 games behind the Steelers. If they win Sunday night, like they did last year, if I remember correctly, in a field goal bonanza, then they're only 1 game behind the Steelers. The Steelers would only have to lose 1 more game and the Bills win out for the Bills to suddenly be the 2nd overall seed in the AFC come playoff time. And that is well within reach considering how the Steelers have played and how the Bills have played as of late. So I ramble on and on and on about how, Buffalo looks great and phenomenal, but to really understand everything, we also have to understand what the Pittsburgh Steelers are going through. And Mark, I understand that you get that a lot better than I do right now.
Well, see, I look at Pittsburgh and I think that this is a much more one-sided game than you would certainly come to believe. I just think that Buffalo is kind of clicking, but I just see it as a mismatch. Like, the defense should contain Josh Allen. I mean, like, he's been getting running a bit lately, which obviously was huge for them last year, disappeared this year, but now it's creeping back in again as, Zach Moss and Devin Singletary, they've been, I'm going to say fine. They've definitely been making more of an impact as the weeks go on, but I just feel like teams haven't, like, I don't know, like, I last week I backed the 49ers thinking they could beat, and especially with Robert Saleh, beat the Buffalo Bills. But this week, I just think there's a complete mismatch with such a phenomenal defense. They should be able to contain Josh Allen, make him one-dimensional again, because it's him being two-dimensional that is really opening up that Buffalo offense. And then they should just contain Stephon Diggs, and it's happy days for them. Now, the problem is Joe Hayden is probably going to miss the game. And when if you remember, we're previewing Buffalo a few weeks ago, I said maybe they're an elite cornerback away from the offense falling apart. I shut down Stephon Diggs, make it be Cole Beasley, and if John Brown plays again, make them beat you. That I just think that Pittsburgh will be reading after finally losing their game. They're not just going to suddenly collapse and go like on a 2-3 game losing streak. I think that they're way too well coached for that. They're far too strong. And something to me is like, they've had a bit of adversity, but Pittsburgh hasn't had injuries, say, like other teams. I mean, they lost Bud Dupree there a week or so ago and Devin Bush in late October. But other than that, like, what's their biggest problems been? That James McConnor and Marquise Pouncey went on the COVID list for a couple of weeks. I mean, every team has had to go through something like that. Now, like I said, Joe Hayden is battling concussion, so he's in the protocol for that. And Robert Spillane, who had stood up as linebacker depth when those other 2 ended up on IR. He went out of the game with a bit of a knee injury, and they're still assessing that, and he seems to be day-to-day this week. So maybe they're going to, if that it's all on defense, these injuries, maybe if the defense starts to take some hits, you could see some regression there. But for me right now, I just think that Pittsburgh are like phenomenal in all those defensive categories for a reason, and they are good against the rush, and they can contain Josh Allen and just make that defense one-dimensional. That I'm going for Pittsburgh in this game. I'm not saying that it won't be close. I mean, the bookies have this as a 1-point game, which is marginal. I don't see it as 1 point. I see it as at least a field goal. I just think that their problems in the past have been injuries, Pittsburgh, and they're just getting through scot-free this year, it seems. And if that's the case and they don't have a big injury in this game, I just think that Pittsburgh should be able to have enough for Buffalo. I don't think Buffalo is as feisty a team as they were last year. Okay. That's a strange thing to say. I just don't think that last year they were causing all kinds of problems that you couldn't figure out. Now you're able to pinpoint it really to Josh Allen this year, that he is playing phenomenally well. And Pittsburgh is the kind of team that's been able to take care of quarterbacks this year. Like, I know people point to, they hadn't the most flattering of wins, that a lot of games were close, but we say the same thing for the Chiefs and we give them a pass on it. So for me, I'm going with Pittsburgh pretty confidently. Again, it could blow up in my face, especially in Sunday Night Football when all our picks have made their way through. But yeah, I don't know who you're going to pick, but I thought it was sounding like Buffalo.
Yeah. Okay. So before I give my pick, I'm going to ask you, did you hear the comments that some of the Washington defensive linemen were saying as they were coming off the field after the game? I think it was, it was Young, and I think it was Montez Sweat, who were coming off the field saying something very specific about the Pittsburgh Steelers offense that really caught my attention.
Yeah, but of course you're going to be saying things Chase Young in
but
particular was after having this fantastic game, and Mike Tomlin was complimenting him. But it's all said when you're after knocking out off an undefeated team.
I get that, but it was still interesting. For those of you that didn't hear, Montez Sweat came sprinting off the field past one of the reporters saying, we knew it. And Chase Young would later clarify that they, quote, saw some things in the Baltimore game that was, postponed 50 billion times that could expose the Pittsburgh Steelers offense. And it was apparently about safeties playing a lot closer to the line of scrimmage, trying to take away the short passing game that everybody's praised Ben Roethlisberger for. And, the wide receivers did have a very tough night. They dropped like 8 passes, and then Mike Tomlin's out after the game saying, if they don't learn to catch the ball, we'll find somebody else who will. So I'm just a little worried about the Pittsburgh Steelers offense that maybe, once is one thing, twice is something interesting. If it happens a third time on Sunday Night Football with a Bills defense that I said I like a lot better, it'll become a problem immediately with the whole nation watching. I'm going to take Buffalo, and like Mark said, I could easily see this going Pittsburgh's way as well. And our guest picker at Mugs NFL is also going Buffalo. So, Mark, to start off the show, you were on an island. So, congratulations.
Yeah, no, I'll take that island. I suppose what you're saying about drop balls. I know what's the tight end's name from Indianapolis last year, Eric Ebron.
Oh yes, Eric Ebron, Mr. No Hands. That's what the Detroit Lions like to call him.
Right, he, to me, was frustrating in his drop balls. And as someone that has him on fantasy, I had to bring him in for Mark Andrews, who's been out injured or on COVID. Yep. I'm watching him, and it's frustrating seeing him drop balls, and he continues to get targets. But why does he continue to get targets? Because this team is extremely spread out, between all their wide receivers. I mentioned on the show a few weeks ago, I've been paying attention to it ever since. There was a graphic appeared on the screen half or through the first half of that game, and it was showing how many targets and receptions everyone had. It was phenomenal. It spread out between so many guys. Jays Claypool's and Deontay Johnson's balance out with your Juju Smith's, Schuster's. So I just think that Mike Tomlin knows he can spread around the targets because there's so much depth there and quality, I suppose, that I wouldn't worry about that. I mean, at the end of the day, if Washington knew what was up so much, why were they in a 14-0? Or sorry, why were they back by 14 points? There
you go. Counterpoint. There you go.
It's very easy to say that we saw something on tape when you've won and it's on primetime football and all the cameras are on you. But I'd like to see what Washington are able to do going forward, because I think they weren't able to see things on tape for other teams. I mean, at the end of the day, they're a 5-win team. So, I mean, I applaud them, but I just thought the comments were your typical comments that you're going to get after you're reading your own headlines, really.
All right. I just wanted to see what you saw. So, Mark, you're on an island with the Steelers, but I could see that game going either way. It was a close one last year, and me and Mugs NFL are going with the Bills, and that's the big Sunday night game on this one. And Mark, if it's okay with you, do you mind if I take the next game really quick?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Just trying to get us in a nice flow. So, Mark, I want to go out to LA for this next game. As the 4-8 Atlanta Falcons go to LA to take on the 3-9 Los Angeles Chargers, who have lost 2 in a row. And listen, the Chargers are coming off a real bad loss, Mark. It's not just bad. And it's not just bad. It's historically bad what happened to the Chargers against the New England Patriots. They lost 45-0. In the history of the Chargers franchise, no team has ever had that big of a margin of defeat. So you could easily say that's one of the top 5 worst losses in Chargers history, what happened this past Sunday. And a lot of it could easily be pointed at special teams. They gave up a couple special teams touchdowns and guys weren't on the field. That's been an issue for the Chargers all season long. And head coach Anthony Lynn addressed that this week. He said he's going to be taking over special teams duties for the remainder of the season. So the hope is that they can somehow try to stop the bleeding to some degree, to at least give their team some kind of chance. So they got special teams issues, the Chargers do. And that's not the only part of their team that's kind of cratering right now. Justin Herbert's been in kind of a slump lately, and it could easily be pointed to the haircut, as we all pointed out on the show. He looks like a 12-year-old kid going to middle school prom after he got that haircut. He did win that game immediately after the haircut, but it's been a slump ever since then. And I think it was in the USA Today, I read this article that they pointed out that his main struggles of late have been against zone defenses, against New England, and then the week before against that opponent, that have really flummoxed him, where he's been throwing picks. He's just not really quite seeing the field quite clearly in zone defenses. He's not seeing defenders in the area. And, all the praise we've heaped on Justin Herbert, we all got to remember he's still a rookie and the kid's still learning, and we got to give him time to, see these things and learn and grow. So I'm not going to harp on him too much. I just want him to experience as much as possible and learn and become a better quarterback because of it. So a lot of things that were already wrong with the Chargers, it felt like they got magnified over last week's horrific loss to the Patriots. But the good news is they're playing a Falcons team that, while Mark and I have praised them a lot on this show, they still have problems as well. Their main struggle this season has been they just cannot punch the ball into the red zone to save their lives. I mean, you put a gun to their head and tell them you have to get this in the end zone, they're probably not going to do it. This also came from USA Today. I'm sorry, I just lost my place with my notes. The Falcons have scored touchdowns on 50% of their red zone trips this season. That's 29th out of 32 teams in the league. And get this, Mark, over the last 3 games, the Falcons kicker, Younghoe Koo, who is the MVP of my fantasy team, all praise be to Younghoe Koo. You must
be in a tough spot if a kicker is your MVP.
Well, listen about this. Younghoe Koo has scored 38 points over the last 3 games for the Falcons, while the rest of the offense has scored 24. Interim head coach Raheem Morris talked about that this week, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he said, I would like to see less of Younghoe Koo. That's not a diss on Koo, but that just means he wants to finish more drives, is what he's trying to articulate for the Falcons. So you got a Falcons team that's really struggled with red zone trips, and a Chargers team that is just horrifically messing up every special teams opportunity they get, and a quarterback who's, having trouble with some defenses here lately. It's a game of which team do you trust the least, and in this instance, I trust the Chargers the least, and I'm going to take the Falcons to win, and so is our guest picker at Mugs NFL.
Yeah, look, I don't want to overanalyze this game, considering It's not going to have too many playoff implications. I have always loved those Atlanta Falcons, obviously, and I suppose I don't think that it does them justice. I said last week when we had Jelani on doing the picks, as a Falcons fan, I respected his picking over the Saints. Falcons over the Saints, I should clarify. That, yeah, I still think they're somewhat of a problem when they can pose that, and not that the Chargers can't, but they have problems that go up beyond the field. I mean, the Anthony Lynn getting fired story has been bubbling up a bit this week. And yeah, I think that it's just a kind of a messy time for the Chargers right now. And that loss was the last thing they needed. So yeah, I'm sticking with the Falcons for that game.
Yep. So, all right, we got our first clean sweep of the show. All right, off to a great start.
And do you know what? It's funny that I mentioned Anthony Lynn there, because it works well with the game that I'm going to. Looking across from the Chicago owners this week, when they play the Houston Texans, could be a look at their future. I.e., the Houston Texans were able to get rid of their head coach potentially, or possibly too late, depending on who you want to listen to. And that could be the case with Matt Nagy. I mean, this Chicago team, what's he done? Since he won that Coach of the Year award a couple of years ago, he's just squandered all credibility that he had. In the last few weeks that we've seen him trying to change the quarterbacks, and that's flip-flop back and forth now. It looks like Mitchell Trubisky is back starting. He's given up play calling, and he's even tried rallying his players, just passionately trying to tell them, could we get on board and just get some wins? Mm-hmm. And what's it accomplished? Absolutely nothing. Trubisky has not developed in his time in the NFL. That fumble lost them the game the other day against the Detroit Lions. And there's no creative offense like you would expect. If he was going to be the Sean McVay or Andy Reid that he was supposed to be, he'd be it by now. And you don't see any saplings coming with this offense. So, I mean, it's pretty much job failed. And why do I point it out? I don't think it's because Nagy's going to be gone before the end of the season, but because Houston still represents a game that they should win and keep their playoff hopes alive, because they're still in this thing. I mean, who do they have coming up? They obviously have the Texans this week. They have the Jags after that. And the Vikings. Now, we'll put a star next to that, but they're 3 games that if they win them, they're going to be in a good spot. Yeah. But there's the negativity around the team, and belief isn't there. What happens when you have that gut punch of a fumble on Sunday and giving up the 10-point lead to begin with? Mm-hmm. So I think it's going to be interesting how both teams react, since, yeah, Houston had a 8-minute fumble that had JJ Watt laughing on the sideline in just complete disbelief that can't be good either. But it's going to be, I suppose, down to which quarterback elevates their team more. I think Deshaun Watson, despite everything that's going on in Houston, can do that. Can David Johnson be more involved and take some pressure off? He's been fresher since he came back from injury. And yeah, I think the obvious thing going forward then afterwards for Chicago will be to trade for Carson Wentz, put him behind Nick Foles, and then have Nick Foles play pressure to Nick Foles, playoff Nick Foles. And yeah, we can look forward to seeing that in 2021. But I just think that it's Houston for me in this game, even though there's something on the line for Chicago. But their season is just all over the place. That loss last week to Detroit was just mind-boggling. And if they can't get over Detroit, even though Houston is having its fair share of upsets and ups and downs, I think that they should be able to pull this one out of the bag. And you know, it's close as well. We've already had a close game. The bookies have this one at 1.5 points, so it just shows that this slate of games is phenomenal. They're all close ones.
I'm gonna give my pick. I'm taking the Texans as well. I've praised Watson so much, but I just like that Mark has just said so many quarterbacks are going to Chicago this year. First it was Trevor Lawrence before the season. Now it's Carson Wentz. It's every quarterback to Chicago right now. And I love it.
How good does that promo look that I put out back in the beginning of the year when I said that team stinks? And it was regrettable for a while, but they got found out in the end. Maybe we'll have to do a retweet on that one, rub some salt in the wounds in the next few weeks.
It came around. By the way, our guest picker. Oh, you were going to say it? Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. We were on the same wavelength there to check out of this game. Yeah. Mugs NFL has gone with Houston as well. So no islands on this game.
Oh, yeah. Well, funny how that goes. That's what happens when you lose 6 straight, Chicago. So that's the Chicago game against the Texans. And Mark, I want to go back to the West Coast for this one because the 5-7 Washington football team, who have won 3 in a row, who ended the Steelers' undefeated streak earlier this week, are going to San Francisco. Well, not San Francisco. They're going to Arizona to take on the Arizona 49ers. I mean, San Francisco 49ers, who are 5-7, are coming off a tough loss on Monday night after Josh Allen torched their defense. Now, this Washington football team isn't just coming off a big win or the biggest win of their season. They're coming off one of the biggest wins of any team this entire year, slaying, the mythical giant, the Pittsburgh Steelers and all this and that. And Alex Smith was bleeding from his leg, and I started crying because, oh God, he's getting hurt again. I got nervous. I really got nervous for a second.
Are you literally crying?
Yeah. And now they get to go on the road and take on their former lover in Kyle Shanahan. And for this preview, I want to take everybody on a little trip down memory road. And that in a not too distant past of like almost 10 years ago, Kyle Shanahan used to be the offensive coordinator for the Washington football team. He was the offensive coordinator under his dad, an NFL legend, Mike Shanahan, who was the head coach for the team. And towards the end of both the Shanahan's tenure, things got a little testy in Washington with leaks that were always rumored to be from the organization, that Kyle Shanahan wasn't, well liked around the team facility and that he wasn't resonating well with players. And then it ended in 2013 when the Washington football team fired both Kyle and his dad, Mike. And that never set well with Kyle. And, he bounced around a couple of different teams here and there. And then he ended up in San Francisco where he became the head coach. And these two teams actually played each other last year in Washington. And reporters asked Kyle Shanahan, about his time in Washington. And he said the best part about it was he got to work with his dad and do all these cool things with his dad. And they asked him what was the worst part. And his exact words were, and I quote, "Everything else." There is no love lost between Kyle Shanahan and the Washington football team. And the 49ers did win a very sloppy, monsoon-drenched game in Washington last year. And I worry that this game in Arizona is going to be a lot similar, except without all the rain. I think it's going to be a heavy defensive showdown, especially since Washington's going to be missing star running back Antonio Gibson, who left the game against Pittsburgh early on. It was his first rushing attempt to what looked like a knee injury at the time. But as we found out on Wednesday, it's a turf toe injury, which is the worst news possible at this point, because that basically means he's more than likely not going to be playing in this game on Sunday, and he might miss next week as well because turf toe is a multiple week injury. So Antonio Gibson's out. That means J.D. McKissick, who got a lot of playing time Monday night. Was it Monday night? Yeah, it was Monday night when nobody expected him to, is going to be back in this one. So it'll be interesting to see how they change their rushing attack. Are they just going to do a bunch of dump offs like they did with them last week? It'll be interesting to see how Washington pushes that going forward. But with how we know San Francisco wants to run the ball, we know Washington, they're not going to air out a bunch of passes. They like to do, simple stuff and let their defense play well. I think that's going to be the kind of game we get, just a sloppy defensive showdown. And we were really kind of, coming around on San Francisco last week when we talked, they could potentially make some noise coming down the stretch. And it felt like some people jumped off the bus after the Monday night game against Josh Allen. I'm going to take San Francisco to win this game, but I could easily see Washington coming out of this one on top.
As you said, it was the defense that was credited with the win against Pittsburgh the other day. That, yeah, I mean, if they're missing offensive pieces, they still can get after San Francisco. I, as a Cardinals fan, had to been happy seeing San Francisco lose the other day because I really thought that they had a playoff push in them. Now it just seems that they're one game too far back, literally a game too far back. If they'd won against Buffalo the other day, they would have been tying with the Cardinals. So, I mean, it's because I think that they can win games like this still. Again, I picked them against the Bills last week. I still think they're feisty and they're getting pieces back. And what pieces have been left anyway were clicking. That I still respect Washington and I still favor them for the NFC East, even though a lot of places are leaning on the Giants. But I'm agreeing with you on this one. I'm going with the 49ers. I think that they still have a bit of juice in them, whereas Washington has been too hit or miss for me all year. I mean, at the end of the day, they got an unexpected win the other day, but otherwise, people would all be on that Giants train. And there's a lot of hype around them this week. And, it's been coming for a while, don't get me wrong. We thought they were going to make jumps earlier on in the year, but like the Kyle Shannon story isn't to be underrated either. These things often have a way of working themselves out. So, call it karma or whatever, but if he wants a win, he might be able to go and get one.
Listen, if Kyle Shanahan could blow them out 55-3, that would be perfect for him. And I promise you, he has talked about that to his players that he wants this game bad. So that's the San Francisco Washington game. At Mugs NFL took San Francisco as well. I'm a little surprised by that. Nobody taking Washington, but it is what it is. Washington, it is what it is. So, Mark, where would you like to go to next?
I suppose that game that we just talked about obviously does have the playoff implications, even though it's not playoff bound, guaranteed, seemingly. Mm-hmm. But this next game kind of does. Indianapolis at Las Vegas is huge. It's really Las Vegas on the outskirts now of the playoff picture looking in. Mm-hmm. I put out my playoff or my power rankings this week, and I said, like, Las Vegas at least has to show a performance considering obviously what's happened the last couple of weeks. I don't see them as my gauge of a good NF or AFC team anymore because they've just been so horrible. Mm-hmm. So I suppose the way to break it down really is to talk about Indianapolis because Phillip Rivers is battling his own toe injury, and it's described as a significant or an extreme turf toe injury, but it's going to require surgery at the end of the year. It's a bad one. So don't just look at that injury designation and think that it's something that I can play through. Like, it is a nasty enough thing, and so much so that, and it's fitting now that this character said it, Quentin Nelson came out and he's pretty much in shock that Rivers continues, saying that like any other player would probably miss the rest of the season with it. So it speaks to Rivers' toughness, but it's also Quentin Nelson's the one that's going to have to keep or play his role in keeping Phillip Rivers upright. Like, so far this year, only Roethlisberger and Drew Brees have been sacked fewer times, which goes to show that they're doing such a great job protecting Phillip Rivers. And that's what we said all along needed to happen. If Indianapolis was to be good, they had to protect him. But the bad news is, like, the Colts injury or the Colts O-line is taking on some injuries now. They had to hold some tryouts there the other day for just to have some depth because they've lost Anthony Costanzo, who is week to week, so you can be optimistic about that. But then the Raven Clark, the backup, went out last week. So in the space of just a couple of weeks, losing your left tackle, like, there's no left tackles just flowing around the league. I don't know, do you know the name Chaz Green, Hayden?
Oh, God, you did that on purpose. How dare you, you sick man. That name gives me nightmares.
If anyone's wondering why Hayden reacts the way he does, the last time this guy had a start, he's going to be in at left tackle this week for the Indianapolis Colts. He gave up 4 of the 8 sacks that Atlanta had on Dak Prescott back in 2017. He just he hardly even floated around the league or after that. Like, after the performance, Troy Aikman, who I guess was covering the game, described it as about as bad as anyone he'd seen play in all his years.
You're triggering me. You're triggering
That's
me.
something to watch is how does Chaz Green fare in this? Because again, if the scheme is off it around keeping Phillip Rivers upright, that's not going to be how it's going to be done, you'd imagine. But I expect the Colts to run the ball in this game to protect Rivers. Las Vegas the other day was unprepared against the Jets, and that's almost what cost them the game, or should have cost them the game. So the question is, who's their number one running back? I put it at Jonathan Taylor. He's putting a bad November behind him. Last 6 quarters, he's had 5.8 yards per carry. So he's settling in to the NFL. He's making more decisions, making better runs and stuff, more anticipation. And it's a do or die game for Vegas. So they're going to have to be able to shut him down. But if he's not the hot end, then you're going to go back to Naheem Hines. It doesn't spell too much joy for the Raiders this week. I'm going with Indianapolis, a real kick in the teeth for a team going up against an old foe. Obviously those we had for years, the Chargers facing the Raiders. So Phillip Rivers will be back facing an old team.
That's right. I didn't even think about that, but you're right. So you talked last week about it's a log jam in the AFC playoff structure, and I don't think any game this week represents that more than this one, because like Mark said, the Raiders are on the outside looking in. They're currently the 8th seed in a 7-seed playoff. You know who the 7th seed is? These Indianapolis Colts, who are currently a game ahead of them. So this game could, flip the playoff standings and could prove to be a massive tiebreaker when it's all said and done. So this game is absolutely massive for not just the Raiders, who need a good performance right now, but it's massive for both teams. And the freaking Raiders were, one horrifically bad defensive call by Greg Williams away from letting the Jets win their first game. I really think both of these teams should have lost last week to their opponents, but I'm going to go with Mark on this one. I'm going to take the Colts to win this one. I just can't trust the Raiders right now. I just can't.
We need to get a jingle going for our islands. Bit of Hawaiian music or whatever, because we have one now in this one, Mugs NFL, going with Vegas, which again makes a ton of sense considering they are on that playoff bubble. But this is one of those crucial crunch time games that we're getting this week that hopefully will get a bit of separation, because like you said, we're going to be even deeper into that logjam if Vegas is able to pull this one through at home.
Yeah, these teams are only separated by one game. It's absolutely massive. So Mugs NFL goes on an island with the Raiders. There's nothing wrong with that pick. It's just it's getting real close to crunch time for these teams. They got to start pulling these ones out. So Mark and I are going with the Colts, and that's that. So that's the Indianapolis Colts and the Las Vegas Raiders. And Mark, I want to go in this next game to one of the games that everybody's talking about, not exactly for the two teams that are playing, but for the quarterback shenanigans that have been going on with them. And that's the 10-2 New Orleans Saints, who have won 9 in a row, going to Philadelphia to take on the 3-8-1 Eagles, who have lost 4 straight. In case you haven't heard, Carson Wentz was benched last week against the Packers, and young rookie quarterback Jalen Hurts came in to relieve him. Hurts did okay. He threw for over 100 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. And Doug Peterson announced, I believe it was Tuesday, that Jalen Hurts will be the starter for this week against the New Orleans Saints. And for those of you that have, heard us talk about Hurts all year, but maybe not know a bunch about him, he played his college football starting out at Alabama. He played in his freshman year. His sophomore year is what I really want to focus on, in that he played so good for the vast majority, took him to the college football playoff championship. And in the first half against Georgia, he did not play well at all. And Nick Saban benched him for future Dolphins starting quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. And that had to really sting for Hurts. He goes to the bench. He doesn't even get a shot at starting next season, as Tagovailoa has taken over as a starter. But they get to the SEC championship game, the conference championship game the next season against the Georgia Bulldogs, where he was benched against. Tagovailoa gets hurt. Guess who comes off the bench to relieve him? Jalen Hurts, who wins the game. And it was such this feel-good moment. Hurts would end the season, and he would transfer to University of Oklahoma, where he would finish his college career under Lincoln Riley, and he had a really good season with them. But I just want to talk about that because I saw this young guy go through all of this adversity in college, losing his starting job to, a future first-round quarterback in Tagovailoa, and, coming in off the bench and relieving him. He's been in quarterback drama before. So I don't have any question that he's going to handle this with grace, because I saw how he handled it in Alabama. He was literally the perfect teammate that you could ask for. And I have no doubt he's going to do that again in Philadelphia. What really sucks here is that he's being thrown to the wolves with a bunch of stakes strapped to his back in the New Orleans Saints defense, because that team is playing a lights out defensively as of late. I honestly, honest to God, I remember early in the season, Mark, when we talked about what's wrong with the Saints defense, what are they doing? And you look at him now, it's like, what are they they doing wrong? I can't pinpoint a single thing they're doing wrong on that defense. They're so good and sound, and it sucks that this poor rookie is going to be making his first start against them. And you would actually kind of hope that it would have been in New Orleans, because at least that's a kind of venue that Jalen Hurts is used to. His entire college career, he played in the South. He's not used to Philadelphia in December outdoors. He's not used to that kind of environment. They made this change to try and give the Eagles a spark, some kind of hope, because they haven't scored more than 17 points offensively in the last 4 games. That's inexcusable when you're trying to fight for a division. I understand why they did it. It just sucks that, he's having to make this start right now against the Saints. And if you're a Carson Wentz defender, or if you're Carson Wentz and you're listening to this will be the moment that you could just sit back and watch a team tear apart the rookie, and then you can point to it and say, look, it wasn't all me. I wasn't the problem. See, it's a whole team thing. I feel for the kid, but I hope he does well, because I've honestly really liked him for a long time. I'm taking the not the Eagles. Oh, God, no, I'm not taking the Eagles. I'm taking the Saints to win this one, and so is our guest picker at Muggs NFL.
Yeah, I'm going the same way. I suppose it is worth noting for Philadelphia, it's often fans really want a quarterback to go in. I think of Dwayne Haskins being one of the more recent ones that they are adamant that he's a good player, and then he's going to revolutionize the offense. And then he comes in, and you pretty quickly realize, oh, he's a rookie, and he's not Justin Herbert kind of rookie. He's a rookie that is in his first start, and he's not up to the pace that the other players have been getting to over the last 14 weeks of the season, or 13 weeks. It is scary for me as a Cardinals fan to look at what happened to Josh Rosen when you put him behind an offensive line that couldn't protect him. That it really just he gave him no chance, and I don't know, could you say dented his confidence, but it certainly dented the fans' confidence in him. And look, Josh Rosen is now a journeyman. He's on the Bucs practice squad, despite being the number 10 pick back in a couple of years ago. So I think that there is things to be wary of with what's going to happen to Jalen Hurts now. I mean, it's late enough in the season that maybe he's going to be able to brush it off going to the offseason, but something had to be done for Philadelphia. They finally made the move, and we'll see how it goes. Obviously, I'm going for the Saints as well, but who knows? Maybe he can make it a bit more exciting, and it's definitely going to be a bit of a break for those Eagles fans that have been pulling their hair out for a while. So best of luck to them.
Yeah, so that's the Philadelphia and New Orleans Saints games. We're all taking the Saints in this one. Saints continue their dominance and their march to the number 1 overall seed. So, Mark, where would you like to go next?
So we gave the Saints the benefit of the doubt a few weeks ago. We've given the Packers the benefit of the doubt. We've given the Bucs the benefit of the doubt. All top-seeded teams this year, and have had kind of maddening performances with huge deficits that they've gone down. And we've had the latest team to go and do that over the weekend was Tennessee facing Cleveland. And once more, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say, look, it's not panic stations. But they were exposed on a certain level that we've been kind of glossing over a bit, because you're able to gloss over when the offense is working. There's problems with Tennessee's defense. I mean, maybe if you have Washington, they'll be able to find the holes better than Cleveland did on how the secondary is playing or what have you. We'll leave that up to Chase Young. But there's problems in that secondary anyway. We should have realized and talked about it when they let Jonathan Joseph go and they brought Desmond King in. Remember, we were happy about it, saying, yeah, that's a really cool move. But that was actually something they really needed to do. But they're giving up yards, and it doesn't help that there's no pass rush. I mean, Vic Beasley has been gone a few weeks now. Obviously, that experiment didn't work. Jadeveon Clowney went on to IR because suddenly he was having surgery before last week's game. And it just speaks to that the coaches coming into this year say that defensive end Harold Landry was used too much last year, and that wasn't going to happen this year. And sure, he's playing almost 99% of snaps in every game. That it just goes to show that they have no depth options. They're doing all that they can do. They're giving up a lot of points, a lot of passing yards, and that doesn't look sustainable going forward. Now, luckily, they have a bit of a better run defense, and going into this game against the Jags, that's going to help them out a bit. James Robinson has been limited in practice, and that's everything that the Jags are right now. It seems all hinges on James Robinson. So if they say he's full go, he's just limited in practice. But like, you know what full go is for an injured running back? It doesn't really work that well. So I mean, like, I think that Jacksonville's going to win this game, but it's just going to allow us to. Oh, sorry, not Jacksonville. What am I saying? I think that Tennessee is going to. It's just what you did with me with Philadelphia a second ago. Okay.
Almost got
I think
excited.
that it'll allow us to gloss over what's wrong with Tennessee as well. Even though this Jags team has been pretty frisky, I just don't think it'll match up as well with Tennessee as it has done with the other teams.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the whole storyline of Mike Lennon being in there, I don't know if it's a coincidence. It surely is that they've looked better, certainly in the last two games, extremely better in the last two games than they had been doing beforehand. Gardner Minshew, obviously, or if people have missed it, is literally, or he's come out and he said he was begging to be put back in. And Doug Marrone just said, no, he needs to show me more in training and in practice, make the throws. So it's not becoming an issue yet, but it's like they're becoming this volatile team that we know them to be, that there's these just silly storylines going on behind. Like Gardner Minshew, he wasn't playing well. He did the whole finger thing, didn't tell them or the thumb. That, you know, like he needs to step back now. He probably has lost a chance in the NFL. Like he was lucky to have all the hype around him in the first place. When I read that story, it made me think of week 2 or week 3, whenever that Thursday night game against Miami was, and going into it, we were all hyped about it. Yeah. But
Minshew mania.
To bring it back to this game and even to last week's game, Tennessee, yeah, we're going to gloss over it again because they'll surely get this win and stay in command of their own destiny and all this. They, otherwise could be worrying about Indianapolis taking over the division seed, and then them dropping into that wild card race, which we said is messy. But there is also positives. AJ Brown went down with an ankle injury the other day. I was able to get back up. It looked like he wasn't going to get back up, and that would have been a serious problem, So you have to look at the bright side too. And at least they had the loss, but I'd almost take the loss and keep my star offensive player as you continue to make a push towards the playoffs. But yeah, there's definitely unsustainable things that are going on with that defense. It's definitely going to be something to look at and pay attention to, because the offense is keeping them over and scoring points. But yeah, it's worrying, and I'm sure teams are going to be able to continue to attack that defense or the DBs, because there's no pass rush, and it doesn't help them out that they weren't set there in the secondary anyway.
Yeah, basically it's a get right game is what I'm hearing from you, right? Basically,
I don't even think it's a get right. I think they're going to get right. I just think that their defense. No, I mean they're going to get right in this game because it's Jacksonville. Mm-hmm. But I just think that we're not going to. We didn't pay attention to the defense because the offense was getting it done, and the offense will probably get it done against Jacksonville, and we won't worry about the holes on the defense. But we might as well start paying attention to that defense going forward, because they're going to be a playoff team more than likely. Yep. And that's the kind of thing that's going to come back and bite you. So call it flagging if you wish, but there's problems there for them.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm taking the Titans to win against my favorite one win team ever in the Jacksonville Jaguars, because they've been so frisky the last couple of weeks. And yeah, this should hopefully get the Titans back on track. But it was a close one early in the season. Take that for what you will. I expect the Jaguars to put up some kind of fight, but I'm taking the Titans to win.
Definitely put up some kind of fight. Look, we saw what they did to Minnesota the other day. They really should have won that game. We're no island this one. Guest picker, Mugs NFL, is going Tennessee as well.
No surprises there. Just ride the Titans. Just ride Derrick Henry. That's all you got to do. All right, so that's the Titans and Jags game. And Mark, I want to go to Carolina for this one, because the 4-8 Denver Broncos, who have lost 2 in a row and coming off a really, really tough loss against the Chiefs, are going to Carolina to take on the 4-8 Panthers, who are coming off their bye week, believe it or not. They had a bye week in week 12. Now, the big storyline for this one, both of them are about the Carolina Panthers. First and foremost, Christian McCaffrey, they're hoping to be back in this game. His shoulder injury, they believe, is healed enough to play in this game. But there was an issue this week in training that they found out that he suffered some kind of thigh injury while he was recovering. So it's no longer just the shoulder. Now they got to worry about an entire thigh injury for poor Christian McCaffrey as well. So they still think he will play in this game, but to what extent is completely up for debate for the Carolina Panthers. The other major injury is that as they were coming out of their bye week, it was Sunday morning when this news reported, if I remember correctly, that 8 different Carolina Panthers got put on the COVID reserve list because DJ Moore got tested positive for it, and they were all in close contact with them. So the facility got shut down for a couple days. They didn't get back until Wednesday when they could resume activities. So Panthers dealing with some COVID issues this week. You know, who isn't dealing with COVID issues at this point? And Christian McCaffrey's a little bit hobbled. It's kind of a good thing that they're getting the Broncos at home, because I really just cannot trust these Broncos to save my life. Their defense did play good enough against Kansas City. They held Mahomes in check for the most part. It could have been a much uglier blowout if, Tyreek Hill, tells them that he caught the pass early in the game. But, my fantasy team had to suffer, so it's okay. Anywho, the Broncos had some good things with Melvin Gordon. I just cannot trust Drew Lock at this point. It's at a point where it's just they can only run the ball. I can't trust them to pass it. And they're going up against a Carolina defense that's, they've had some flashes, especially with Jeremy Chin being a pretty outstanding player. But I still don't trust them 100% either. I'm going to go quickly with this one. I'm taking the Carolina Panthers to win this just because they've been more consistent this season, if that makes sense. And the Broncos have just been way too up and down for my liking. And at Mugs NFL is joining me. We're both taking the Panthers on this one.
I'm going to join you picking the Panthers. Again, it's a close game. I'm just looking at my power rankings here. I've the Panthers at 21 and the Broncos at 24. Now, I do think that I would, if I had to put a tier in there, I might have a separation point almost at the Broncos. But yeah, the whole trusting them, they're so up and down. Like it was somewhat impressive what they did with the Chiefs, that they're able to hold their own the other day, especially on defense, put it on Vic Fangio and all that they can be frisky. And this is kind of a coin flip game, but I'm going to ride with the whole wide receivers being able to get it done, and then hopeful that if Christian McCaffrey comes in, that could be definitely what gives you gives them the bit of juice. That again, it's too late for Carolina to make the playoffs. I think they're pretty much eliminated now, whereas if they'd won their last game against the Vikings, they had a shot. So yeah, I'm going Carolina because they've been, like you said, more consistent.
Yeah. So that's the Carolina and Denver game. We're all on board with the Panthers. We're going to sweep the Broncos out of here, them and Drew Lock's mom on Twitter. So, Mark, where would you like to go next for our next game?
It'd be worth, I suppose, getting it out of the way. Another non-playoff impactful game. Your own Dallas Cowboys visiting the Bengals.
Oh,
and
Jesus Christ.
One way looking at it for me is I wonder, will it be a run-dominant game? These are both shocking against defending the run. What Dallas is the worst in the league. I think the Bengals are fourth worst in the league at defending the run. And do you know what? Ezekiel Elliott, to me, it's shocking what's going on with him right now. He's on my fantasy and I cringe every time he drops the ball. But I don't know what's up with him. His numbers, the numbers that he's putting up are all down on other years. And it's actually, to me, it looks like he's trending closer to his 2017 numbers when he missed 6 games due to that suspension. So I don't know who you put that on, if it's the O-lines or the coaches wanted to put Tony Pollard in. But yeah, it doesn't explain to me what's going on, even if you want to pinpoint it to something. I mean, are they worried about him getting an injury? Like their season's over, so they're like, we don't want to utilize him as much. Or is it like, why waste them now? But I don't understand what's going on. He's supposed to be the focal point of your offense, or so it's been claimed for years that he's the focal point of your offense. So why have they come away from that and not let him be who he's going to be? That he puts up fine fantasy numbers that you're still going to start him, but in terms of watching him on the field, I don't understand. Like, he was great in the beginning of yesterday's game. Ezekiel Elliott's going to be the focal point of your offense, and you're not letting him be that. Like, no wonder that they've gone by the wayside. And I just think it points to, again, the coaching is all over the place, that they don't know what they want to do. He was trending in the first half, like decent, 5.5 yards per carry against the Ravens. So it's like, why did they come away from that? And it's inexplicable to me, really, what's going on. And then I look at the other side of the ball. Joe Mixon could have come back, but similarly to what could potentially be happening, then this is only speculation on my part. Are they trying to reserve Joe Mixon? Because now with Joe Burrow out for the year, Joe Mixon is a candidate to return, and he seems to not be coming back. That it seems that they're just shutting him down for the year. That had been speculated already, but they just, I suppose, calling a spade, and it's not going to happen for them. So Yeah, I mean, Dallas's games aren't encouraging to me, but neither are Cincinnati. I think that for Cincinnati, though, the frustration that we knew from them in 2019 has creeped back in since Joe Burrow went out injured. And, that's the ejections the other day and that shocking, late hit on the kickoff return that, had the two benches empty onto the field. That I think this is a very messy game. I am going with Cincinnati in it. I don't really know what I'm basing anything on in this game because the Cowboys should be able to put them away easily, but they've just struggled. I'm flip-flopping. Even now, I'm like, just their last couple of games have been poor. At least they were able to stay in the first half against the Ravens. I'm going with Cincinnati. Just I haven't picked them in a few weeks is almost why I'm doing it. And I'd like to know as a Cowboys fan, has my assessment been too difficult or too harsh on Ezekiel Elliott?
Oh no, you're spot on. In fact, I would encourage you to go a bit harder because he has not had a good year. I'm surprised you didn't mention it's the Andy Dalton revenge game, his return to Cincinnati. That's a big talking point. But listen, this Cowboys team, they just looked completely lifeless in the second half against the Ravens. I forked them a bit earlier in the year when they put on a lifeless performance where I said they have no fight in their eyes. If you look at the sideline in the fourth quarter of that game, they looked just done. Just done. I've never seen a secondary look that defeated after giving up 100 passing yards to Lamar Jackson. They were just gone completely. I'm taking the Cincinnati Bengals as well, just because they've shown some more fight lately, especially on defense and special teams. Their offense has been atrocious under Brandon Allen, but I just trust that they've shown more fight than the Cowboys. It's as simple as that. I'm taking the Bengals to win as well.
So I think that puts us on an island. We have Mugs NFL going with Dallas. So
gonna get him. I'm getting him on that one.
Now that's the exact kind of game that this week is going to be decided on. I think because it's a coin flip. So what version of Dallas is going to come out? We could come away looking awful silly.
Hey, listen, when they put Zach Martin on IR before the Ravens game, I was like, that's it. They ain't winning that. They ain't even going to get close. And so he's not going to play in this one either. So I have no faith in Dallas.
What's Chaz Green up to?
Oh, shut up. Okay, we're done talking about Dallas now. That's the Dallas and Cincinnati game. And Mark, I know we've done some lesser games here, but I want to go to a big game right now because the 11-1 Kansas City Chiefs, who have won 7 in a row, are going to Miami to take on the 8-4 Dolphins, who have won 2 in a row. And Mark, this is a big game for the Dolphins. What?
You say they've won 2 in a row, like that's the biggest achievement that they've had this year.
Baby steps for the Dolphins. All right. Listen, this is the big game for the Dolphins. All right. Because, a lot of hype is around them. They're one of those up and coming teams that everybody's kind of talking about because they're trendy and they're different. They haven't been good for a while. Now they're going to go up against the biggest, baddest dog in the yard for the Chiefs. So it's a measuring stick game for the Dolphins. It's kind of a respect game. You face against the biggest, baddest one in the yard. Let's see how good you really are, Miami. And for Miami, I saw what they did last week with that special teams touchdown that got called back for a flag. I would encourage them to do a bunch of that this week. Whatever you have cooked up in your lab for experiment plays on defense and offense and special teams, whatever you got going, bring it and throw it directly at the Chiefs, because that's what you're going to need to bring. You got to throw basically not just the kitchen sink. You got to throw the entire household at the Chiefs in order to have a shot. That's just how good they are. Specifically, the run defense just has not been good this late in the season. We saw Melvin Gordon rush for 130 on them on Sunday Night Football. I know the Dolphins' backfield has been in tatters this entire season. Myles Gaskin came back this past week, and I'm not expecting the Dolphins to suddenly rush for like 250. That's not what I'm trying to allege. But I think that's a blueprint for how they could potentially win this game, is that you control time of possession. You get these long run-based drives going, and, maybe not ask Tua to, have to sling it 50 times to, do a shootout, and just keep Patrick Mahomes on the sideline kind of thing. I think that could be a recipe for success for the Miami Dolphins. Now, to the Chiefs, we've talked, a bunch about the Chiefs. We know how great their offense is. I actually read something a bit earlier. It was an article that was written a year ago by this website called The Scarecrow, and it's called The Curse of 15-1, because the Chiefs are pretty much going to be favored for every game the rest of the season. They have a serious chance to go 15-1. And it talked about how ever since the NFL moved to this current schedule that they're under, there have only been 6 teams in the history of the NFL to go 15-1. the last 4 of which, the 98 Vikings, the 2004 Steelers, the 2011 Packers, and the 2015 Panthers. If you notice a trend of those 4 teams, it's that none of them won the Super Bowl that season. In fact, out of those 4, the 2015 Panthers were the only ones to make it to the Super Bowl. So,
hey, let's not bring up who they beat in the NFC Championship game.
Listen, I wasn't going to go that far. Okay, I wasn't going to do that to you like that, all right? After you dunked on me with Chaz Green this entire show. I wouldn't do you like that, all right? So, listen, what I'm saying is that there's kind of been, a little kind of superstition, if you believe in curses, around 15-1. And it is a huge achievement. Like I said, only 6 teams have ever done it in the history of the league. So maybe if you're the Chiefs, maybe don't go 15-1. Go 14-2. There's nothing wrong with 14-2. 14-2 is still freaking great. I'm just saying something to keep in mind if the Chiefs falter in like the AFC Championship game after going 15-1. Something to keep in mind. I'm taking the Chiefs to win this one. Like I said, they're going to be favored in every game for the rest of the time. But this is a respect game for the Dolphins. Show us what you got. Show us how good you really are, Brian Flores and Tua. Show us what you got.
I would wonder if the sample size is big enough for the 15-1 to hold it up as a statistical figure, scientific figure almost, the way that you're describing it there.
Bro,
but yeah, I like what you're saying about Miami getting, exotic with its plays, and I might mention that again in a second with our next game. That, yeah, I'm going to go with Kansas City as well, because I just think that they're shackled to a Tagovailoa's performance in Miami still. I think that, yeah, he had his highest yardage there in the weekend, but like I don't know why I'm going so far back on that. I really think Ryan Fitzpatrick gives them the better chance to win, but it was just when he got benched that day to the fight that Ryan Fitzpatrick showed, and he's just, his experience, it's just something that I haven't been able to shake since, like, I suppose it was the Cardinals game really what did it for me, that I didn't think that the Dolphins with Tua there should have beaten the Cardinals, but they did. But it was all about the defense and stuff, and it's just that defense is phenomenal. But then if you're riding with that defense, well, yeah, the Chiefs' offense is far superior because, they're just like a generational thing almost. That, yeah, I'm sticking with Kansas City, hoping, of course, that it's going to be a fun game. And yeah, like you said, you can still actually get into the playoffs with a 14-2 or even a 13-3 record.
I'm just saying, if you're one for curses, I'm not saying that they're gonna. Obviously, I'm not saying that they're gonna lose because they go 15-1. I'm not trying to say that at all. I'm just saying it's something that's out there, something that could be looked into more if that's what happens. But I'm taking the Chiefs. Mark's taking the Chiefs, and at Mugs NFL, he is also taking the Chiefs for a clean sweep on this one. So that's the big game between the Dolphins and the Chiefs. And Mark, where would you like to go next?
Yeah, an equally as important game, I suppose, is where we'll go next, with Baltimore going to Cleveland this weekend. And this is really a story to me of 2 wildcard teams. They both had up and down seasons. They're trying to get right, if you want to call it that, trying to get hot, whatever phrase you want, whatever cliche you want. These teams are it. I mean, I tried looking at form and all that. Like, for every impressive win these teams have had, they've had an equally as devastating loss. And anytime they show signs of growth, there's a bit of regression. But like I said, that's what you get with your wildcard teams, that like they don't have the perfect seasons. They're not going for the 15-1s like Kansas City and Pittsburgh are doing. We're not saying off the top that they're the 11-1 or not, whatever the Saints are, whatever Green Bay is at, whatever their record is, that these 2 teams are feisty wildcards that get to the wildcards, and it'll be a new season and you'll be fearing one of them. But you have to remember then that this game is so important because there is that logjam. I mean, out of these teams now, the Browns, Dolphins, Colts, and Ravens, one of them is going to miss out. Like, unless now it's going to be Tennessee. Wouldn't that be funny if Indianapolis gets into the AFC South? Wow. And then but realistically, it's going to be one of those teams is who we're going to lose. Now, I think that out of those teams, Cleveland to me has been most impressive and would be the scariest come the playoffs, just because of what talent is there. And at the end of the day, their numbers, their points that they're putting up, the run game, all of these things are like top 5. That, yeah, they're the scariest team. But when you look at what Baltimore did the other day, what they needed to happen happened. They were facing the worst defense against the run in Dallas. And that allowed Lamar Jackson to get back running. That allowed J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards to take over that game. I mean, Lamar Jackson, I thought it was great. He was smiling, and he missed a play. I forget who he threw it to, but it was on third down. I think it was 3rd and 8. The ball receiver went too far, didn't come back for the ball. He was able to laugh about it. Like, this is a guy that we were saying only last week needed the time off to reassess and to stop calling out his team and saying that the opposition was knew their plays before they happened. I mean, I'm not saying that isn't what's going to happen in future, but he looked like someone that was having fun again. And then when he went and had that touchdown and a 37-yard run on 4th and 2, that was what they were doing last year in Baltimore. So I definitely thought that they were back, but for me, this game, I'm siding with Cleveland. I just think that they have been more impressive. Kevin Stefanski, remember, is a first-year head coach, and the team had to be patient for the pieces to start working in a scheme or whatever you want to call it, that they're getting more exotic with their plays now, and that's why I think it might have a playoff feel to it, that they're going to pull out all the stops, because you might as well win this one as you would want to win one in January, because it's that significant of a game. They all really, really count now. Think about it as a knockout round anyway, if you will, because this is all kind of seeding implications. It puts Baltimore in a bad spot if they lose this. I mean, Cleveland has opened up a bit of a gap, but they can't win their division, so they're still going to have to go through the wildcard route.
Right.
Important game. I'm going with Cleveland. Our guest picker at Mugs NFL is going with Baltimore. So I suppose you're putting someone on an island here.
Yeah. So listen, you stole the words right out of my mouth. I felt that the performance by the Ravens against the Cowboys, that was a get right. They looked exactly like they did last year, where they ran for almost 300 yards and Lamar's smiling and he's having a good time. That just felt good to watch again after everything that's happened with the Ravens this year. And the Browns explode over Tennessee. I feel like this is the perfect time for these two teams to play each other, because they're coming off such big wins, especially for the Browns, their biggest win of the year. And for the Ravens, it was a get right game. They're catching each other at the right time. So I would hope that it's a good quality game, unlike it was in week 1, where the Ravens just demolished the Browns and everybody was, back then, everybody was still super high on the Lamar for MVP train. I don't think it's going to be like that at all. It definitely won't be, like a 45-6 final. It'll be a lot closer. I'm also going to take the Browns in this one, which I didn't think I would be doing a week ago, but here we are now. We live in a different world now. And I'm going to ride with you on this one. I'm going to take the Browns.
Yeah, so I think it's an extremely important game. I just need to scroll back to it. Jay, it's Monday Night Football.
Yes,
so
prime time.
Certainly a spicy game for Monday Night Football. We're getting between the Sunday night and the Monday night, and even last night's Thursday night game. You had some powerhouse teams involved with the Rams. Yeah, there's a lot on the line, and certainly another one to look forward to. Just another one of the great games we have this week.
Yeah, Cleveland's a hot ticket. They got Monday night this week, and then they just got flexed into Sunday night next week against the Giants. They're a hot ticket now. People want to watch the Browns, baby. It's fun.
Yeah, the Giants getting there as well. I suppose the people were complaining, saying, not complaining, but pointing out that Dallas was losing a primetime game. Well, you're forgetting that New York is also a pretty big market, especially when their team is in the playoffs, and they better get it before another loss or something happens and it deflates everyone all over again.
Get it in now. I like it. I like that attitude. All right, so that's the big. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry to piggyback on that point, though. We were saying all year how they needed to start flexing some games, but they're too conservative with COVID, and they only have so many games. I was like, why all of a sudden are they? I suppose are Dallas that bad that had to get?
Did we really have to sit through San Francisco and Dallas on Sunday Night Football, Mark? The nation did not need to suffer like that. Okay, Browns and Giants is way more entertaining. We can all universally agree on that one.
But out of all the games, and I haven't looked at next week's games, but I feel like now you don't need to flex this week, but it's like, how doesn't that Baltimore Cleveland end up on Sunday Night Football? I suppose Baltimore has been on enough. I think that they want Cleveland to be on their primetime slot again. So that was just the point. I just think that there's such amazing games even this week. It's like, how doesn't even in Indianapolis versus Vegas, how doesn't that end up? There's just such implications on the line. I suppose that does it. Doug, I'm going to leave it at that.
Before you go down this rabbit hole of Sunday Night Football flexing again. Anywho, that's the Baltimore and Cleveland game on Monday Night Football should be a great way for everybody to end their week. And Mark, I want to go back to Sunday for this one. A little less important in playoff implications, but a game that's massively on my radar because of how it ended last week, and that's the 0-12 New York Football Jets. I say that with great disdain right now, going to Seattle to take on the 8-4 Seahawks. Mark, my heart was absolutely crushed. I feel like I'm the only human being on this planet that wants the Jets to win a football game, because you scrolled through Twitter and it's nothing but Jets fans wildly celebrating that they lost another game, because they're absolutely convinced that the only way they get Trevor Lawrence is that they go 0-16. The Jags are probably going to win another game at some point. They don't have to do 0-16. You don't want to be remembered like that, Jets fans. And they're coming off that horrifically, awful historical loss to the Raiders that Greg Williams got fired for, and rightfully so, because you never call a blitz on a Hail Mary. I don't care what they say. And the Seahawks as well are coming off not necessarily a humiliating loss, if I can learn how to talk. It was more of a humbling loss that the aforementioned New York Football Giants walked into Seattle, a place that the Seahawks haven't lost at all year, and made the Seahawks eat dirt. They ran up and down on the Seahawks. They rushed for over 190 yards, and their defense held Russell Wilson in check and brought back that midseason Russell Wilson that everybody didn't like watching, where he was turning the ball over and he was getting sacked a bunch. That's not necessarily Wilson's fault. That offensive line has been playing horrifically bad lately. It's just that the Giants went in there and just asserted themselves in a game that Mark and I really didn't pay much attention to. It was the last game on the docket last week, and we all kind of universally agreed Seahawks are going to take care of this one. They didn't take care of business. They got pushed around by the Giants, and it was kind of a game that shows that the Seahawks aren't as invincible as we all were hoping they would be. Their defense didn't play that great. Like I mentioned, they allowed for Wayne Gallman, of all people, to have a 60-yard touchdown run at one point. It was ridiculous what was happening to the Seahawks defense. And after I said that they were probably going to start playing a lot better and start padding their stats, and they'd come out and do a performance like that, really wasn't all that great to write home about. They're getting a Jets team that, is going to have a new defensive coordinator in there. It's the linebacker coach that got promoted. So I wonder if the Jets defense is going to be less aggressive, maybe not blitz as much as was a trademark under, as we've talked about, Greg Williams, who just got fired. That'll be interesting to watch. It's been talked about a bit in the news this week that Jets wide receiver Denzel Mims, he had to fly back home to Texas because apparently there's some kind of family emergency going on. We really don't know what's going on there, and we hope all the best to him. But the head coach Adam Gase talked about he might not come back in time to play for the Jets. He would also have to go through coronavirus testing once he gets back. So it's a matter of not just if he comes back, but when he comes back is the big issue for the Jets. So their offense is going to be a little hamstrung in this one, and their defense could be some jigsaw pieces going back and forth. The smart thing to do would be to take the Seahawks, as we all know. That should be the easy one to take. And if I remember correctly, yeah, I'm looking at the picks. Our guest picker at Muggs NFL has taken the Seahawks to win this one. I, of course, decided to make my bet with the Jets, and I will be taking them to win again this week because I hate myself. I said I would do it, Mark. I'm a man of my word. I'm going to keep doing it till they win.
Oh, wow. Sorry, do I have to speak now? I'm speechless.
Yeah, he literally put his hands over his head. If you're not watching the video show on YouTube, he can't believe I did that.
I'm sure you're going to go back to Seattle. Like, I mean, you can take the week off. Though, to me, I was able to enjoy that game the other day as someone that I have a soft spot for New York as a city. And the Jets would have been my team. I could have ended up, if I had it for a while, my AFC team. This is going back a few years now. I don't know, around 2014, 2015. It was when the Jets were making that playoff push with Ryan Fitzpatrick, so maybe it was 2014. And yeah, it was kind of, I liked the Jets. I liked that all green and everything that they had. And for someone that kind of off to the side will never have to worry about them winning a Super Bowl, I do want to be able to enjoy them once more if they get Trevor Lawrence, and all of a sudden, I'm as someone that I just enjoy paying attention to, that this toxic culture is gone and they have Trevor Lawrence, and hopefully it's amazing. Now, look, Sam Darnold was supposed to be the savior as well, and that didn't work out. But geez, I've known Trevor Lawrence. I don't pay attention to college football much other than what I have to do for work. And he's been on my radar since before any of these guys came into the league. Well, it's been 3 years that he's been playing at a high level. Since he was 19, he had 100,000 followers on Instagram because everyone knew that he was going to be a star. So hopefully he's going to be a guarantee. That I was able to enjoy that Raiders game the other day, as in, look, they did enough to win. They should have won. Everyone saw it. but they're able to keep the first overall pick. So, I mean, I don't believe Greg Williams made that disastrous play call on purpose. Otherwise, he wouldn't got fired unless he was just trying to do one for the team and thought that behind the scenes he was going to get thanked. But unlike PFF, who put out their podcast this weekend, had it as that it was the right call, and you're thinking, oh, PFF know what to do, and then it was Steve Palazzaro saying that was the right thing to do in terms of the first overall pick. We're not going to do any clickbait here. I mean, I just think that New York is en route naturally to the first overall pick, and I hope they don't mess it up at this point. It's been too bad of a season. Why would you want to get a win almost at this point? I know we talked about that 0-16 is such a crazy thing, and it'll be remembered forever, but geez, if the storyline is that they went 0-16 and then got Trevor Lawrence and he turned into an absolute gem, it could introduce tanking into the NFL if that storyline holds up.
I had tweets ready to go. I was ready to party. I was going to tag Mark and all of them. And he correctly called me out in the group chat. He's like, you had tweets ready to go, didn't you? I'm like, I did. And I had tears rolling down my face. I wanted the Jets to win so bad, and they let me down again.
Yeah, no, I pulled them up just there to see your tweets once more about your adulation. 4 minutes past 9 my time, you couldn't get over yourself. 10 minutes past 9, you couldn't get over yourself. And once more, 10 minutes past 9, you came back to earth and said, never mind, I'm salty.
I got never mind. That was the moment Henry Ruggs broke it. I'm like, oh, come on. Oh, man, the Jets. Oh, it's got to suck.
I love that side story for anyone that didn't hear it. And we're going to get off this game now, but anyone that didn't hear it, Adam Gase heard it through his through his headset. He heard something about a blitz, and he was like, wait, what? Did I hear that correctly? And he's like trying to get a timeout in. He's like in disbelief trying to get it. It didn't count. And sure, then the blitz happened. That must have been surreal watching that play out in front of you. It's like something out of it.
They had it. If
he knew for himself, it was more important to him that a blitz didn't get called, because a win for him might keep his job. So of course he's going to be freaking out. They're like, no, don't do it.
Anyway, that's the Jets and Seahawks.
We're going to stay with the New York teams for this. It's a game that I find almost difficult to preview myself with my involvement with the Arizona Cardinals. That the Cardinals go to the Giants. A story of two absolute opposites, it seems, at the moment, in terms of trending up and trending down. I just looked back 5 weeks to see where these two teams were. The Cardinals were at 5-2. The Giants were at 1-6. And now they're 6-6, the Cardinals, and the Giants one game behind them at 5-7, which is absolutely, like, you couldn't have it any more stark, really. Just a bit of housekeeping before I get into it. Daniel Jones is likely going to be back. He missed a week or whatever last week, but I don't know if that's necessarily a good or bad thing, because I don't know if you're going to completely say that the Giants, it's not like they're going to miss a beat because he's back in. But obviously last week with Colt McCoy, it kind of worked well that they were able to run the ball. And they went off for 190 yards against Seattle. And Seattle's strong point on defense was supposed to be the run defense. It was the air that you were supposed to beat them on. So it was definitely surprising. I know you brought up Wayne Gallman there a minute ago. Yeah, I mean, that would worry me as a fan. I didn't think a couple of weeks ago it would, but now it does, because the Cardinals' run defense seems to be sliding a bit itself. And then for the Giants, they use a lot of zone defense, which is perfect when you're talking about a Kyler Murray, a guy that likes to use his legs. Like, the whole concept of the zone defense against a guy like that is they don't turn his back to him like you would in man coverage, that they're going to be able to watch Kyler Murray, and the teams figure out how to play Kyler Murray a bit more. Watching him and containing him and just hoping the guys pick up their men correctly and don't have mistakes. The defenders, that is, pick up their wide receivers as they pass through the different zones in the defense. That, I'm a bit worried. I'm hopeful that the Cardinals will be able to come out and get over that. And then the other point that I want to make is how the special teams, I don't know about this, Aiden. I'm one of these people that the Cardinals have been beat with special teams a lot over the last few years, but it's always like a busted block means that a team goes back the other way and gets a huge pickup on them. That no one's gotten really, and not in my memory, maybe I'm wrong, but no one has really gotten real frisky with them and creative on the play calling. Like, I don't remember too many fake punts that have led to game changing moments against the Cardinals. That Now you have to pay attention to that with Joe Judge, because he's been obviously able to do it throughout the year at different points. And in a game like this, again, is extremely important to both teams. Extremely important to both teams. Cardinals trying to stay in the wildcard race. The Giants don't have too much room to maneuver atop the NFC East. That I wonder, does he start to play or pull some tricks out? And is that an area of the Cardinals that they have been improving over the last 12 months? But is that going to cost them? Because last week they gave up some big plays. They're missing some gunners and stuff like that. Those names that fans wouldn't really know play on the team, except for they're on special teams and they're just doing their job there and they get no credit for it. That if the Cardinals are a bit weak in there, because it's the likes of the safeties and stuff that the Cardinals have had to rely on. They're onto like back to fourth and fifth stringers in the secondary a bit. So I'm worried about what could happen there. I kind of hope that if you have a conservative special teams, guys with crazy special teams, like saying, no, we won't go at you. We'll save our crazy stuff for teams that want to have that kind of deal with us. But again, we talked about it before, or I talked about it before, the worries with the Cardinals for me. I don't know if Cliff Kingsbury is earning his money right now. He's been too aggressive. The offense isn't able to put 2 full games together. They had this run of they would burn teams they would set the tone in the first quarter, run it a lot, tire the team out, and then the second half they go off. I've kind of been wondering, were they gassing teams because of the heat earlier on in the year as well when they had games in Arizona? I don't think that makes complete sense because they've obviously been on the road too. But they're not gassing teams. Teams have figured them out, and now, not that they've gotten off to a hot start, but a couple of weeks ago when they did get off to a hot start against the Patriots, they couldn't end the game. And then last week they didn't show up at all. It was the worst performance I think that Kyler Murray has had, even including last year. It was miserable. Wow. DeAndre Hopkins and all not getting one target in the first half is absolutely shocking. That there's a lot of soul searching that needs to be going on. And I'm thinking myself as a pretty, fair fan. And I give a lot of rope to the likes of Cliff Kingsbury, but the system is just gone off a cliff now, and there's no reason they can't pull it back, but they have to do it fast, especially against a team like the Giants. I'm glad that they beat Seattle the other day because it'll really make the Cardinals have to sit forward and pay attention and not get complacent against them. Otherwise, maybe they would have.
Right.
And it's a big game anyway. They shouldn't, but yeah, I'm still picking Arizona in this game. I'm doing it partly as a fan, partly just that the Giants, everything has been going right for them. That is something finally going to go wrong. But I expect an island in this game, honestly.
Really? Okay. So I'll make my pick quick. I do want to say that we talked about the Raiders a bit earlier, in that they really need to prove something because they're on the outside looking in as the 8th seed. The Cardinals are currently in that position, if I remember correctly, Mark. They've lost 3 in a row. They're 6-6, and if the season ended right now, the Vikings get the last playoff spot, and I'll preview their game next. But the Cardinals really need a win desperately right now. And it sucks that they get matched up against this Giants team that's got a bunch of momentum, got their longest win streak since 2016. They're reminding me a lot of those 2011 Giants. And if people don't remember that team, they stunk up the joint for the vast majority of the season. Then their defense just pulled the team together, and they got super hot late in the season, and they went on this Super Bowl run. I'm not saying these Giant team is going to go on the Super Bowl run. They definitely aren't. I'm just saying it reminds me of that because their defense is leading the way and their offense is doing just enough to stay alive. I'm taking the Cardinals to win as well, but I could easily see the Giants winning this one. They proved that they could go into anywhere and beat a team like Seattle with that defense. I just worry about if Daniel Jones comes back, is he 100%? How will he look? If he's hobbled with that hamstring, he won't be mobile, and that will limit the Giants offense even more. I'm taking the Cardinals to win. They desperately, desperately need this game, Mark.
Last year, the Cardinals went to MetLife and absolutely obliterated the Giants. Now, I know obviously the new coaching staff is in since, but if you say that the rosters remain the same or the Cardinals got better, I would argue pretty easily, obviously with the DeAndre Hopkins, but they're able to get a bit more depth on the defense that has disappeared. But like, if they lose, that's very worrying because it's like if you're able to beat them last year with like half the scheme and half the install that you have now, what does that say about the direction that the team is going? So actually, no island for this game. Yeah. Guest picker Mugs NFL has come with us, and we're all going to Arizona, but. I mean, as a fan, I love the excitement. It's just sad that I really thought that they're going to make the playoffs, and if they make it, yeah, I'll look back on this very fondly. But right now, as we record this episode, it's a bit trickier to really be able to enjoy these ones. But yeah, look, it's why we're fans of the sport. It's all tricky. So yeah, 3 of us going for Arizona.
Yeah. So that's the Cardinals and Giants game. Should be a fun one in my opinion. But I got one more game to preview here really quick, and I'm going to run through it super fast because I feel like it's not going to be close. And that's the 6-6 Minnesota Vikings, who have won 2 in a row, going to Tampa Bay, another team that's coming off their Week 12 bye week, the 7-5 Buccaneers, who have lost 2 in a row. And I talked about it last week. I'm not going to rehash the whole argument. I just feel like this Vikings team proved even more against Jacksonville that they are actively trying to throw away the season. You got Kirk Cousins, who is playing pretty well. He had that horrible interception right coming out of halftime, and it has to go deep into overtime in order for the Vikings to suddenly eke out a win against a 1-win Jacksonville team. I know we said the Jaguars are a bit friskier, but Minnesota's in a fight for their lives in the postseason right now. They can't be having these bad performances and making these mistakes against lesser teams. So when they play a good team like Tampa Bay, like Mark and I have talked about all year, yeah, the Bucs have their problems, but if you come out making mistakes against these Bucs team, they're going to make you pay. And Brady's going to put touchdowns up on you. It's simple as that. So how am I supposed to believe that this Vikings team that is, not done well these last 3 weeks against the Cowboys, the Panthers, and the Jaguars is suddenly going to turn it on when they have to go on the road to face a Bucs team that really could use a win right about now? Like I said, they've lost 2 in a row. I just don't see it happening at all. I feel like the Bucs are going to come out on fire. They've had an entire week to prepare for this one, and I'm taking the Bucs. I really don't see this one being close at all, Mark.
I was surprised you came in and you said that it wouldn't be close, because I do think that you're correct in where the Vikings are heading, what direction right now. That, yeah, it should have been a routine win the other day, and they made tough work of it, even though we have to acknowledge again that Jacksonville is quite frisky. Right. But like, this is the number 6 seed playing against the number 7 seed. And like I said, when we're talking about Cleveland and Baltimore, like, this is the story of wildcard teams, that they can look good and they can look bad. But I do think that the good has been far better for Tampa Bay. And I'd be like, this is a 7-5 versus 6-6 based on your tiebreaker. Like, the Minnesota Vikings then get into the playoffs ahead of Tampa Bay if these teams end up drawing, and they would certainly flip in the standings.
Right.
So like, this is again an extremely important game. But I'm the same. I think that, just like I said, with Cleveland being more impressive to me in the AFC wildcard race, I think Tampa Bay has been the second most important point, whichever NFC East or NFC West team, I suppose. No, probably they're probably the most important surprise, or the most impressive of the NFC wildcard teams. I should include Seattle and LA in that. So again, like, they're a wildcard team. They're not the Saints that have had it easy, but they're still getting it done. And yeah, look, it's Tom Brady in this time of year is able to perform as well. So like, there's no ruling that out. I now was reading something. It was actually a Twitter page that I read at QB Analysis. I don't have his hashtag. Sorry. Anyway, you won't be able to find. But anyway, his analysis was that the one thing that the Bucs have struggled against this year is a quarterback, kind of a cerebral guy like Kirk Cousins. So like, it's not home and hosed for either team. I would have it as a close one if I'm able to pull up real quick. It's actually, wow, it's a 6.5 point game.
Interesting.
I didn't think they would give it that much with so much on the line, but I guess in Tampa Bay maybe they're factoring that in a bit more. Look, I won't go on about it too much. I just do want to give Minnesota their fair shout in this game. Like, they could. They've obviously they have a bit in them to be where they are right now. I'm going with Tampa Bay for this one. But I think we have a split for this game.
I don't think so. I believe. Oh yeah, you're right. I can't believe he did that. I forgot about that. Yeah, our guest picker at Mugs NFL is going for the Vikings. Which, okay, all right. I personally don't see it, but Mark says it could be close. I'll take your word for it, Mark. I just can't see it with how the Vikings have played the last 3 weeks.
I just think that when they have all their pieces in there, Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, like, they're explosive enough. It's more the defense. So it's, will the Bucs be able to play like they can play? Or are we going to get one of the stinkers? Because that's the thing with the Bucs. You don't know what version is coming out. I know we say that about a lot of teams, but the Tampa Bay are definitely up there with one of the worst of them in terms of leaving us with a bit of guesswork. I guess we can move on. I suppose you're done with that one. Yeah. So it's our last game we're going into now. And Hayden, you're not a fan now of the Green Bay defense.
Yes, I'm on record. I haven't been a fan lately.
it's easy for me to come in now and say that they've been very positive as of late because they just came off a game against the Eagles when they had 7 sacks. But honestly, like, I do see a lot of improvement from Green Bay. The Za'Darius Preston Smith duo hasn't been effective as it was last year when they combined for 25.5 sacks. And, you know, like whatever Smith Bros, they nicknamed themselves, going off either edge and just causing havoc. So Rashawn Gary, first round pick from 2019, has stepped in. He's actually replaced Preston Smith as the starter, even though they're splitting reps pretty consistently or whatever. But like, he's been huge this year. Like, he's having a really good, I don't know if you call it under the radar. I think it would be fair enough to call it that. But on 4th downs, on crucial drives, he's coming up with pressures and sacks. Like, he set up Preston Smith the other day with, I think it was on a 4th down, to get a sack, because like, it's just, his hustle is phenomenal, really. And yeah, like, he's getting healthy now after having an ankle injury that bothered him earlier on in the season, was probably prevented him from starting earlier. And like I said, like, he's been good to Preston Smith too. It's kind of like more of a 3-pronged attack versus someone getting benched. It's just who's the one that takes the field first, and it is Rashawn Gary, because like, it's fitting that Preston Smith hasn't dropped off himself. Za'Darius Smith then forced a fumble the other day, and Preston Smith was able to return it against the Bears. So that's kind of coming out again, that pass rush. It's pretty dominant, I think, and I think it's coming out more and more. And then it helps that like the likes of Darnell Savage, who himself was a first-round pick in 2019, they had 2 of them. He went from having no interceptions all year. He's 3 in the last 2 games now. So it just kind of points to me that the cogs are beginning to turn for this Green Bay defense, and it's the right time to do it. You're in December, playing December football. You need to start getting right heading into the playoffs. And yeah, it's a really positive sign for them. To me, Detroit are fool's gold, though. They sit 1 game out of the wild card race, and I mean, they're going to be going for this. So the problem is the Packers allowed Philadelphia to hang around the last day, and that game got close, even though it shouldn't have. Like I say, Detroit is fool's gold. Why? Because their wins against the Bears, Washington, Cardinals, and Falcons, they were all last-second wins. Like, the Bears last week had that incredible fumble. Washington ended on a field goal. The Cardinals game ended on a field goal late. The Falcons, of course, had that crazy ending that they were able to pull out of the bag when the whatever 80 yards to get down the field happened, and Detroit was able to pull it out last minute, and it broke my heart because that was still when the Falcons, I think, were winless.
Still mad about it. Still mad.
Green Bay can't let them hang around in this game, but that defense is starting to get better. The offense should be able to do its thing. It's been able to do it all year. It's a divisional game. They should be taking it serious. And yeah, it's something that I'm looking forward to seeing. How dominant can they be this week against Detroit? I'm going Green Bay. Mugs NFL is also going Green Bay.
Yeah, full disclosure, I'm going to take the Packers as well. They played each other earlier in the season. I believe it was week 2, and the Lions suddenly jumped up to a double-digit lead early in that one, and people were like, oh, what's going on with the Lions? Maybe they're for real. And then the Packers immediately came all the way back and just routed them the rest of the game. I don't think it'll be like that in this one. The Lions really surprised me coming out under interim head coach Darren Bevel last week and coming back against the Bears and winning a surprising shootout. I don't see them doing that at all against Aaron Rodgers, who's trying to lock up an MVP against Patrick Mahomes. This should be Packers, and they should be able to handle business in Detroit. Hopefully.
Yeah, easy enough. So we do have a few after that wild week of or a lot of tight games. Even that, can you believe Green Bay and Detroit? Detroit's fighting for a playoff spot. They're only 1 game back.
It's
I think
crazy.
that we're spoiled really for games this weekend, but yeah, we have to enjoy because we are week 14 now at this point, and yeah, they're coming in fast.
It's crazy because if you told somebody what the Lions are doing right now, you would say, oh, that's a 2-3 win team, and then you look and like they're only a game back of the wild card. Like, really? Like, that makes no sense at all after everything they've been through. But you're right, Mark. Like, these teams still do have a shot, and these games still do matter. Even the ones we quickly went through, they're important. It should be a really good week. We got a lot of great matchups, and I'm honestly drooling over certain ones like Sunday night and Monday night football. It should be a lot of fun.
Sunday night, Monday night, 4:00 has the 9:00 my time has the Indianapolis Vegas game. There's,
that's gonna be good. That's gonna be good.
yeah, even games in the AFC that don't have any bearing on the Cardinals like are super exciting. I think there's more going on in the AFC honestly this week than anything else. So yeah, like you said, looking forward to it. Thanks obviously to our guest picker at Mugs NFL. I know he's a longer name on Twitter. He actually goes by Custom US Sports Mugs shirts and hoodies. So if you're looking for him, and obviously you can go check him out. And it's coming up to Christmas, etc., etc. We're not getting paid by that guy. Don't worry. This is not sponsored. We're just plugging a guy that was good enough to do our picks with us. So best of luck to him doing our picks this week.
He was gracious enough to be our guest picker, and we thank him for that. So that's it for the Week 14 preview show. I'd like to thank Mark for coming by and talking to me, and we'll be back next Friday to preview Week 15. Could be an entirely different playoff slate. Who knows what could happen this week? So that's Mark. I'm Hayden, and we'll see you next week. Bye.